Okay, so we are live. Good afternoon, everybody. We are live, and it is our first Friday live for 2025. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me know if you are joining me live. Where are you connecting from? Are you on Facebook or LinkedIn? And where is your location? Let us know. And very quickly, today we are seeing people pleasing teenagers. Do you have a teenager? Is your child a people pleaser? Or are you a people pleaser yourself? That's the discussion we are having today. Okay, so just a moment and I will be, um, let me be sure that all of my audio is working. And then let me know if you can hear me. If you have joined live, let me know that you can hear me loud and clear. Okay, okay. I think that I think that we are good. All right. How to help your child? How to help social value to help your child escape the trap of social validation? Who is a people pleaser? This conversation I'm having today is going to help us understand how your teenager currently feels the need for approval from other people. And importantly, we're going to be talking about how you can guide them to break free from the trap, their true identity, their authentic self. That is the purpose of this conversation today. So, have you noticed that your child is constantly seeking approval? Have you noticed that kind of behavior? Or you have a child that is described as, um, there's a word they have for it, okay, but that kind of child who is different at home and different at school, and then they behave differently when they go to church, and then they behave differently when they go out for a party or something. A parent won't send me a message complaining about the fact that the child is always behaving differently when a visitor comes to the house, or behaving differently when their friends visit the house, or when the child goes to visit the friend, or when they're hanging out. And she was trying to compare what's going between when the child is at home all by themselves or with family, or when they go out for a function. I like to call them validation junkies or approval junkies, right? These guys are hooked on approval. They are young people who depend on others for approval. They depend on others to feel good about themselves. And it is not let's make that clear. It is not a good thing. It's not supposed to be. When a teenager begins to shape their identity or based on the feedback that they are receiving from peers, and sometimes even be from parents also. Okay, it could be you, the parent, that is providing the feedback that is causing this child to adjust or reshape the identity or reshape their personality. It could be social media, it could be interactions with other adults, but essentially at the root of it is that the young person is seeking validation, external validation. The ideal thing is that validation is an inside job. Identity and personality comes from the inside, and that's what we want to talk about today. But why do teenagers act this way? Why are young people falling into the trap? Why is it a problem for young people? Now, make no mistakes about it. You will find adults who also have this problem as well. But I'm concentrating on the teenagers and the young people in our. So there are several reasons why this will happen. Number one is fear of rejection or fear of criticism. Your child is afraid of being left out. Your child is afraid of being judged by their peers. Is afraid of being judged by other adults. In the case of that child who is acting differently when there are other visitors at home, or even being judged by you as the parent. So they tend to conform to what they perceive might be the expectation of these people. They tend to conform to what they expect, what they think will be the expectation of these people that they are interacting with. So if their friends have a certain kind of expectation about them, they will go ahead to behave in that manner, in a way that allows them to meet that expectation, in a way that allows them to get that approval, conform to that situation, and then they are able to quote and unquote win the approval of this person before whom they are behaving in this manner. Another self-esteem, low self, without a strong sense of identity, without a strong sense of self, without personality, your child is going to rely on value. We're going to talk about how to achieve that sense of self, how to achieve that strong sense of identity. But where self esteem is missing, where personal worth has not been established ahead of time, the child is going to find alternative means to, feel worthy, to feel respected, to feel loved, and to feel valued. Number three is perfection and high expectation. When a teenager feels that they need to meet a certain standard of perfection, they must be this prim, prime, and proper child in order to be accepted. They will do whatever it takes to meet those standards, even at the expense of their own happiness. So there's a book uh, by my mentor, Coach Wendy. When the logo wrote the book, I don't know if I have it. I know that I have it. I don't know if it's handy. The book is titled Trophy Child, Raising the Trophy Child. Something about the celebrations and the challenges of being a trophy child. If you have raised a child who has this idea of perfection, who has this idea that the only time they are accepted, even before you, the parent, that's why I said that even parents can sometimes contribute to validation addiction in teenagers. If you have raised a child who the only time they get praised, the only time they feel a sense of value and worth in themselves is when they are bringing home first position, or they came top in an athletic competition, or any kind of competition. That competition, you will not approve them. You are also creating this kind of child who will need external validation, who will need to perform at a certain level before they can feel love, irrespective of whether they are happy about that or not. Now, is there anything wrong with being a high performer in school? No. Is there anything wrong with performing tops in sporting competitions and all of those things? No. But if your child cannot find validation without a, a trophy, without a certificate, without anything like that, then there is a problem. And so that's how many different kinds of certificates or different kind of award. Best, so after best behaved, best performing child, best laughing student. So we have created amount go for serious issues, because later on in life they are going to face the real world where they don't give people certificate of attendance, where nobody is going to applaud them for just showing up. They are going to need to face real fierce competition out there, and they are going to fail. The problem here is that the child is not being prepared for failure in real life, for being able to address complex situations, setbacks with some. So perfectionism is a problem. High expectations are good, drive children, set standards for them, give them a reason to forward and to do all of that. However, there must be a cap to it such that that child has an original sense of identity, an original sense of worth, an original sense of his or her personality in age. Your child should not even be on social media at all. As you should try to limit exposure to social media, because even adults are not prepared for all of the things that go on social media. The dragging and the trolling and all of the bad mouthing. So you don't want to expose an immature person who is yet finding their identity, who is yet discovering themselves. And so this cycle of approval, this cycle of approval seeking will lead to an entire loss of the identity. We were trying to find the identity in the first place, but now we're going to lose it entirely. Because to develop an identity. In coaching and mentorship, for build the identity is not an instant thing. There is no one key that you can turn and you say, this is my identity. Identity is something that the discovery takes a while. So you want to put this child in a safe space where they are exploring and making mistakes and growing and identifying their core, their values, their essence, and all of that. That cycle, I've talked about the low self-esteem aspect of it. But that cycle also leads to poor decision. Who struggles to make an independent choice, to make an independent decision. They are always waiting for some other person to come to their rescue, to make a decision for them, and or whatnot. That is not something you want for your teenager. So if any of what I have described sounds familiar to you, I've seen this in your own teenage around other people around. You are not alone. I can guarantee you that you're not alone. And it is something that we have seen more commonly than even talked about. And so we're going to talk about it in this conversation. We'll go deeply into some of and how you can how you can help your child. That's the purpose of this conversation. How you can help your child to break free from that need to constantly seek or pursue approval. Okay, sorry about that. I think that there's a technical glitch with my connection, but let's continue. Signs of a people pleasing teenager. What are the signs for you to look out for? The things I have just described. The things I've just described are reasons why this thing happened. So, what are the signs that you can look out for? What are the signs of a people pleasing teenager? Number one is that they have a difficulty saying no. They don't know how to say no. They agree to things that they like, they agree to things that they don't like, just to avoid conflict, just to avoid disappointing other people. So they don't know how to say no. If you have a child who has a problem with saying, so sometimes parents are frustrated when their teenagers have a different opinion from what they have. That is supposed to be an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for self-expression, an opportunity for exploring the identity. If your teenager has never had a different opinion from you, there's probably a problem. If your teenager is always an OS member, always accepting what every other person has to say, there is probably a problem somewhere. If they are always avoiding conflict, so they will say yes to everything. They will say yes to you. They will say yes to the good friend. They will say yes to the bad friend. They will say yes to the bully. They will say yes to everything just because they don't want to avoid conflict. They don't want to avoid disappointment and all of those things that come with every other kind of social interaction. What other signs to look out for? A constant need for approval, praise and validation to feel good about themselves. So if nobody has praised them, nobody has admired, nobody has affirmed them, affirmation. Nobody has given them an award. They cannot feel good about themselves. Their happiness is tied to the approval of other people. They rely on that approval to feel accepted. So if I'm not accepted in a circle, then something wrong with my sense of worth. There's something wrong with my sense of that. They are constantly afraid of criticism and rejection. They fear criticism and rejection. They go out of their way to avoid it, any form of negative feedback. The problem is that you will always get a form of negative feedback in life. You will always get it. So these guys will sacrifice even their own needs in order to escape criticism. They will sacrifice their own well-being in order to escape rejection. I talked about young people who have inconsistent behavior. So you meet the child in school, they're a different person at home, they're a different person. You meet the child in church, they're a different, just behaving different. They are not predictable. You can't this child will behave in this situation. You can't say this is how this person will behave in this situation. They are going to behave according to how the situation presents itself. And so they don't have a sense of value. Their value system is always shaking. Their value system is dependent on the loudest voice in the room per time. That's what a person with an inconsistent behavior will look like because they are always trying to fit in to the different groups where they find themselves. Another sign to look out for is that this child is always apologizing. There is such a thing as over apologizing. They can say sorry. They can say sorry even when they have not done anything wrong. They can say sorry even when they have not done anything wrong. Sorry, 1 minute, please. I will have to. Okay, so I'm discussing the over apologizing syndrome, if there's a word like that. It's something that goes on with teenagers. They are often saying sorry even when they have not done anything wrong. Constantly trying to make other people happy. They're constantly trying out. So there's an expression I'm always using to describe this person. He wants to ask something. He goes, "Sorry, please excuse me." Sorry, there's excuse me, and then they want to ask a question. It's a question that they are going to ask, and they put in front of it all those introductory apologies. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But when you find it in your teenager, you're looking at a teenager who is probably a people pleaser. Perfectionism, setting unrealistically high standards for themselves. Social withdrawal. This child does not want to involve themselves in any social interaction. The reason is that they want to prevent what they think is a potential place for rejection or a potential judgment that they want to avoid. So they would rather avoid every form of social interaction entirely. It's also a sign of self-sabotaging, because self-sabotaging people will will avoid even opportunities for a keen competition. For instance, they will undermine their own. I saw this, or I heard this firsthand sometime. I believe it was in December. I was invited to a church program for young people, and we're having this discussion about academics and stuff like that. And two teenagers confessed before the class about how they intentionally failed an important examination. They failed that exam because they failed that exam because, according to one of them, her friends her friends were, taunting her as over sabi. You know, according to her, I'm trying to recollect the conversation now. According to her, it was about trying to win the approval of her friends, because her friends have labeled her as somebody that is always showing herself. That's the word. She was showing herself. Passing an exam felt like showing herself. And how does passing an exam and showing yourself the extent that young people can go to? And so they intentionally, two kids intentionally failed an exam. Like, you know the answer, but you're not going to write it, because somebody outside of the exam hall, who does not have the same goals as you have, who does not have the same values as you have, who is not going in the same direction as you, decided that that person decided that will that person decided that you are over sabi. And so for you to prove to the person that you are not an over sabi, you are going to now understand. How bad is that? But that is a self. I've had another case where this guy intentionally missed a competition because he doesn't want to go to that competition and face a potential criticism or the chances of failing in that competition. Teenagers can self-sabotage because of this need for approval, because of this need for indecisiveness. Is another sign to what? Indecisiveness, difficulty making decisions because of fear of making the wrong decision. I also speak to parents about allowing young people to make certain kind of decision skills to practice their self. We talk about self-awareness somewhere in the course of this. Conforming to the expectations of other people. That's another sign like this. Conforming to the expectations of other people. So I talked about value system. Consistent, or it's not constant. It's dependent on the loudest voice in the room. So if the loudest voice in the room says let's smoke, voice. If the loudest voice in the room says let's drink alcohol, we'll go with that voice. If the loudest voice in the room says let's dress naked today, let's not even wear clothes, let's do Malians, we'll dress like Malians and go to school. Whoever is the loudest voice, so you're going to see that's when you start telling them make sure you don't follow this person, follow this person, because when they follow this person, they start behaving like that. I talk about raising young people who are precious themselves, who are not victims of peer pressure. There are so many signs. I'm looking to see whether I can capture everything I have on my list. Avoiding vulnerability. Avoiding vulnerability. This is about a young person who is unable to share their thoughts, who is unable to share their concerns or their, because this is, and this is another place where parents always feature. Parents, because I don't know how they are going to react. My dad, because she's going to flare up. You don't know mother. You don't even say this thing near her. You go collect slap. All right, and things like that. So avoid vulnerability. They're not able to express when they have a genuine need and when they need help. So they also find it difficult to seek for help, because the mindset of a people pleaser asking for help is and is an anathema, is a sin, kind of weakness, and you should never show that. And so they avoid intimacy. They have a problem with building authentic relationships. They have because they're afraid of getting close to anybody. They're afraid of really coming close to anybody because they have this thing about, if I get close to you, how long is it going to take before you see the real side of me, that side that you are going to condemn, that side that you are going to judge. Okay, so they fear intimacy, fear relationship. They're never able to build connection or any kind of social interaction. That is an avoidance of emotional rejection. All the other kinds of there. So they're generally passive people. They have a lot of negative self-talk going on with them. Our time is fast spent now, so but I must mention this one. They are jealous and envious people. So a lot of the people who exhibit jealousy and envy are actually people pleasers. Have you ever heard somebody criticize a successful, and the reason they are criticizing person? I talked about showing yourself as a refuse to pass an exam or intentionally failed an exam. Good. Criticizing successful people and say that person is too proud, that person is showing himself. Meanwhile, this person is just being in their element and manifesting their God-given potential. You, in your small mind, in your label them as being proud and they like showing themselves. When you see a person making those kind of comments, there is a tendency that that person is suffering from low self-esteem. Because they reduce themselves, they expect that every other person around them should also reduce themselves. And so I'm describing a second part of what I said before. And what I said before was people who intentionally reduce themselves so that other people around them will not feel bad. If you are going to feel bad because I'm showing up, if you are going to feel bad because I'm succeeding, if you are going to feel bad because somebody got an award, that person is not the problem. You have a problem and you should check yourself. But I'm saying that there are young persons who intentionally put themselves down just to make every other member of their social circle feel safe. And then there are others who antagonize people who succeed, who antagonize people because they feel threatened by the success and effort of those other people. So this will manifest in either underachievement or overachievement. The overachieving person is striving for excellence and success to Okay, so sorry. We had a network glitch there, and but we are back. We're back. So I've shared a lot of signs of things you can look out for that are signs that your teenager is probably a people pleaser and they are in that trap of seeking social approval and social validation. How can you help? How can you help? Because that is the purpose of our conversation today is to is to help your child break free from that trap, break free from that, you know, from that position where they are constantly seeking for. The first thing you need to do is to help them cultivate a sense of identity. To help them cultivate a sense of identity. Where we're doing a 30-day creativity challenge sometime in April. And I believe that the details are scrolling. Let me be sure. Yeah, the details are scrolling on your screen. And but more details will come your way in the course of our conversations. But we're doing that challenge, and part of what it's supposed to do is to help your child understand their identity. And for those who join the 30-day creativity challenge, we're going to create a special session for parents on why teens fail. I have a book, Why Teenagers Fail, that I wrote. Let me be sure. Yeah, that's the book. Why Teens Fail. But this book it was written for teenagers. I'm going to do a special session for parents who join it. Other things that have come up, since the book was released. And I want to talk to parents. I want to bring the conversation from the perspective and those who work with teenagers and those who love teenagers. All right, to help them um, understand all of or some of the things that we are discussing, but help your child cultivate a strong sense of identity. Is that they will need to understand their and learn how to those fears, their fears, and learn how to overcome those fears. There are scenarios where I have teenagers and I get them to identify and name their fear. Encourage your child to articulate their feelings. So this is about emotional awareness, but generally self-awareness, okay, and the development of a healthy sense of identity. Questions like, what exactly are you worried that might happen? Like, what exactly are you thinking will happen if you make straight A's in your exam? Let's identify exactly what you are afraid of. Sometimes you will identify that the child is afraid of an individual, is a person. And so this child is a victim of bullying. Somebody sent me a message yesterday that we have not gotten to talk about, which is how it's usually in school. And because I've not chat. So I'm not going to go into the details of that problem. But I'm saying that when you allow your child to identify and pin or name their fears, you can help them begin to overcome those fears. What exactly are you afraid? Do you think that this person might think if you do this? So if we know what it is that we are afraid of, if we know the expectation that we are trying to avoid, then we can dismantle it ahead of time. That is the beginning of what self-awareness is going to help you achieve. Help them understand that their worth is not determined by the opinions of other people. So we teach value system. In the last 2 months in the academy, we have been working around identity. We have been working around value. We have been working around building effective relationships because relationship skill is also you build relationship and supportive for yourself rather than these relationships that make you the relationship for validation. So I was talking about boundaries, and somewhere again, I'm going to touch a little bit on that. But help your child understand their worth. Help them understand that their value is not dependent on what it is that some other person has to say or doesn't have to say. Building an identity in activities like journaling and self-reflection. A young person who is not able to reflect, who is not able to take stock of their day, take stock of their week, take stock of their month. I think it was sometime early today that I was reading somebody's article on social media and how people live 1 month 12 times and say they have lived in a whole year. And so you're never really examining what it is that is going on with your life. You need to have your child in a space where they are able to examine what is going on with them. You need to have your child in a space where they are able to constantly examine their lives. They are able to constantly. So at the Teen Success Academy, we do this now even on a weekly basis where we are doing self-reflection exercises, helping young people process their week, process their emotions, process their identity, and process their personality. Why did I feel this way today? What did this person say today? How did it make me feel? And how should I respond in case this event comes up in another form or at another time? All of this helps your child increase their self-awareness, and they begin to feel comfortable in discussing their interests, discussing their values, discussing their self-worth. You must teach your child to challenge their own negative self-talk. So every individual, more so with young people, more so with children, has a voice talking to them in their inner man. All right. And one of the things I speak to parents about is to make sure that the voice that your child has as their inner voice is an empowering voice, because most of the time that voice is the voice of the parent. So if you have a parent who constantly put you down, if you have a parent who constantly abused you, if you have a parent who constantly insulted you, most of the time the inner voice you hear will be the voice of that parent. But empowering your child to challenge that inner self-talk is something that you can do. Teach them to recognize when that inner voice is critical and when that inner voice is empowering, when that inner voice is convicting, and when that inner voice is condemning. There are two different things. To convict is to bring to your awareness something that you need to make corrections on, something that you need improvements around that area. But condemnation is what it is. It's outright condemnation, critical and negative in its nature. And then we begin to help that child replace that conversation with positive and empowering self-talk. I hope that makes sense because I'm not going to dwell a lot on it. Okay. Teach assertiveness. Assertiveness. This is communication skill. A young person who is not able to communicate assertively is going to be a victim of bullying, is going to be a victim of trying to please people, because they generally lose their voice in the crowd. But communicating assertively, which is also something I'm going to discuss with that case I talked about, bullying, is about communicating. Because why is your friend even in a relationship where they are bullied? Why is your child even in a relationship where they are bullied? In the first place, why are they there? So they have a problem with their relationship skills. They have a problem with choosing who should be in their space and who shouldn't be in that space. Teach assertive communication. Teach them to set boundaries. Again, I've done this with a number of teenagers, and it's a practical thing. What is allowed and what is not allowed in your space, and how do you communicate those boundaries? And you do it over and over until it becomes a part of, such that you know that somebody starts making this kind of conversation around you, then that person is not welcome in this space. Empower your teenagers to make choices about their relationships, about their mental health, and all of this stuff that we are having today. Boundaries. What are boundaries? The limits that we set to protect our emotional space, to protect our time, and to protect our physical space. The child does not know how to create boundaries around their emotions space. They are going to fall in victim what we are talking about. They are going to be victims of trying to please everybody because your boundaries determine when you should put yourself first, when you should put your emotions first, when you should put your time first. If people can barge into your time and barge out anytime, and even you as a parent, are you modeling healthy boundaries around your life? Or can people visit your house at any time of the night and any time of the day? Because one way to do this, when I say teach, do this, and all of that, is by modeling, is by creating scenarios, role play scenarios where your child can practice, where your child can practice telling you no, for instance, where your child can practice telling you that this time is time for certain activities and not time for the other activities. How to say no confidently, being able to say no without feeling sorry about it. I teach my teenagers that no, no is a complete sentence. No, that is a complete sentence that does not need an explanation. It does not need whitewashing. It does not need any other thing around it. My answer is no, and I don't have to explain. There might be people where yeah, there might depend on you giving to this person to be able to come into your space and demand an explanation for a decision you have taken for yourself. You need to know who that person is. And after all of this is done, then you come to the phase where you begin to promote their own internal validation. This is where we can talk about things like using affirmations and using empowering words, celebrating your children for maybe their accomplishment. But when it comes to this subject of celebration, something very important for you to note is that if you are going to raise a child who is not a validation junkie, earlier in the course of this conversation, I spoke about the book by Coach Wendy. Um, that book is titled Raising a Trophy Child. One of the ways to help your child overcome this addiction to validation is by helping them celebrate their effort, celebrate their growth, celebrate their character, as against just celebrating a certificate or just celebrating an accomplishment. That the biggest part of success is the person you will become in the process on your journey to success. That is the biggest component of success. The biggest component of success is not arriving at a place called success, at a place called achievement. It is who you become in the process of arriving at that place. By there are people who have arrived at a place of political success by stealing. There are people who have arrived even spiritual success by doing all manner of ill practices and sharp practices and all of those kind of things. And so you don't want your child to get that idea that the end justifies the means. So you do that by identifying and remarking it, celebrating the effort. How much effort did you put into this process? How much growth did you experience through this process? How did your character get formed in this process? Not just what did you achieve, how many how much do you have in your bank account, and all those kind of things. They talk about helping young people define success is something that we can have on so many different occasions. But generally speaking, encourage your teenagers to build their identity, our character, their growth, their personal development and most importantly, their value system. Encourage them to set goals that align with those things, those passions that they have, those values that they hold dear to themselves. Encourage them to set goals around them and not just setting goals around social expectations. How many likes do you get on Facebook? How many followers do you have on Instagram? And all those things that we adults have started to normalize, like my coach will say, normalize nonsense. Stop normalizing nonsense in your house and start normalizing serious things. Start normalizing things like rejection. Millennials, if you're a millennial, you grew up in a time where somebody can say certain things to you and you can shrug it off and move on with your life. Now, they cannot say anything to a. I'm not saying that there is no such thing as verbal bullying. That's a different conversation entirely. But I had a teacher call me earlier today. I had a teacher call me and said that she how did she put? I can't remember sometimes all of this conversation, but she was trying to correct a child. Primary school, primary school. She was trying to correct the child and get that child to do classwork. The child reported the teacher that the teacher is bullying her, and somebody even came to intervene in the matter that they are bullying a primary school child because a teacher wanted to help that child focus on their work and get it done. How are we creating situations where young people are not able to develop grit and stamina to face simple things like a correction, do your homework and classwork, or whatever it is that you're supposed to do in school? That's what I'm talking about. That's what you should normalize and stop normalizing social media. Who was the latest, whatever you guys celebrate these days? I don't even know. Right? Help your child understand a genuine connection, a genuine relationship, and a superficial relationship. Relationship skills again. Because if you do not know who is accepting you for your values and your identity, then you're going to pursue every Doc, Dick, Tom, and Harry that is out there because you want to be friends with everybody. If you are friends with everybody, if everybody likes you, you are a city without walls. You have a big problem. You have a big problem. They used to say that if everybody likes you, ice cream. And I say that even ice cream, not everybody likes ice cream. Have you not noticed that ice cream have different flavor? You have vanilla, strawberry, coconut, and all those. So everybody cannot like you, even if you like the ice cream. You must normalize those kinds of conversations with your young person. And you do this in a safe space where they can talk with you. That's my next point. Create a safe space for communication around your house. Establish lines of communication. Children must be able to come to you with the craziest of ideas that they have. I usually say that if your child cannot tell you the nonsense that they are thinking about, when they are thinking about the serious thing, you are also not going to hear about it. So establish those open lines of communication, and let your child feel heard, let your child feel understood. Don't be the one. I've talked about negative inner voices. Don't be the one building up their negative inner voice. Listen without validate fees, even when you don't agree, because there are sometimes when you're not going to agree. I said that you must have a space in your house that allows your children to share different opinions, and then let's have conversations around it. It is when you shut down a lot of these opinions at home, they will go outside and they will find one criminal that will validate that thing that they are thinking, and then you will become the enemy. Yeah, that's how it works. That's how it works. Empower your child's independence, empower their decision making ability. Give them freedom to make decisions around certain things. Okay, a parent reported something to me. It was about choice of food. So this child does not want to eat, let's use beans as an example. I don't want to eat beans, I want to eat rice. And that is what is creating the quarrel at home. I say, yes, okay. That is, I don't know what would have led to that. But how about before or once in a week? I'm just giving an example. How about once in a week, you have this family meeting in your house where the children get to choose what are we going to eat on Sunday? And then you give them option A, B, C. So you make sure they're not choosing something that you are not able to provide. A, B, C, okay, there is rice, beans, yam, and any other things that you would do, right? And then they make option. And then they even go to the market, shop for it, buy it, come back and make the meal. You see, you will reduce stress on your own part, but then you're also teaching the child how to make decisions and how to be independent. There are so many ways that there are so many arguments that you 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 will benefit from not having with your teenagers. So instead of having that argument, create a space where you can use the same argument to empower their sense of decision making. And sometimes even allow them to fail and face the consequences of that decision. Because if they fail and face consequences within a safe space called home, it is better than carrying one idea and going to fail on a big stage. So if you constantly avoid failure in a small space, you are postponing failure, because one thing is sure is that that young person is going to experience a setback sometime in their life. The earlier they begin to learn how to deal with it, the better for them, the better for their future, and the better for you as the adult in their life. My time is up now, so I can't take a number of other things that I have here, but you know, things like resilience building, things like building confidence, things like modeling a growth mindset around them, helping them build their ability to bounce back from challenges is what I've already started to talk about. And I think that's a good place for us to end the conversation today. Thank you very much for your time, and apologies for all the technical hiccups that we have had in this particular session. Good to see you again, and enjoy the rest of your weekend until I come your way again for another Friday Live. I hope that you found value in this value. You found value in this session. They are going to be able to use it to build your children to escape the trap of social value and not validation junkies. God bless you. Have an amazing weekend. And like I said, look out for the 30-day creativity challenge. Sign up your child and get all the other things that come with that. I'll see you later on. Cheers.